movies are known for their depiction of black characters on screen, from being the first to die to being the magical helper with no story of their own. Today, we are going to take a look at the 5 most common tropes in horror movies that have limited black characters for far too long. Number 5, the urban setting as inherently dangerous. I think that when you look at this trope, you have to realize that horror movies have a history of using setting to evoke fear. However, when it comes to using the urban setting to evoke fear, what you're really getting are a list of stereotypes that already plague those communities. Inner city neighborhoods are diverse and contain a rich amount of characters, all who have different backgrounds and different stories. Not everybody living in the inner city neighborhood are criminals or downtrodden or looking to harm somebody. Number 4, Hollywood voodoo. Now, Hollywood voodoo, we've seen it multiple times on screen where voodoo has been really just kind of reduced to curses, zombification, and just dark magic in general. Personally, I think that this is an inaccurate and kind of exploitative look at voodoo and a lot of African and Caribbean religious practices. This trope is really damaging given that it's an inaccurate portrayal of what voodoo actually is, which is community-based and very much so rooted deeply in African traditions and religions. However, when you get to movies, they only focus on one thing, and that's the curse aspect, and that's the dark magic aspect. And essentially what this becomes is the standard narrative for African American religions and African religions as well as Caribbean religions, because there is a huge positive aspect like community, blessings, things of that nature that come with being a part of this religious practice that most people do not know about. Number 3, the token black best friend. The black best friend is really a character that could have been the main character, but essentially was relegated to a side character, and they really don't fulfill any sort of plot objectives except but get killed off. I think a very popular example of this is probably Bernadette from Candyman, who the film really could have been about her investigating her city and the myth of Candyman. However, she plays secondary to Helen Lyle as this black woman who essentially, even in her own neighborhood and in her own city, she is a stranger to her own community. And it's Helen Lyle who is more interested in the problems of the city as opposed to Bernadette, who's lived there her entire life and who has actually been to Green and who knows about Green. Number 2, the magical Negro. Now, a lot of people really don't see the issue in this stereotype. I mean, you have a black character who has all of these mystical powers and abilities to see into the future or to, see into the afterlife. And that would be cool if they did something other than help out the white main character. Number 1, the most popular and most dangerous black trope in horror movies has to be the sacrificial black character. I feel like a lot of the times when these characters are introduced, they are really not significant to the plot in the sense of they can't really dictate what goes on in the story. There's really only one person that does that. It's the main character, and that main character usually is white, so they have no control over their fate. And the truth is that when you see characters like the magical Negro, the token black best friend, or even the useless cop, which is probably something we'll get into in another video, but they really don't do much of anything except but die and present the main character with a lot of information so that they can piggyback off that information to become successful in the end. But we're starting to see an era where that's changing, and these faces in horror movies are looking a little bit different. So when I think of a lot of these horror movies, I think that horror is moving in a positive trajectory. I think that they're moving in a trajectory that is going to show these characters in a better light. So I don't think that this is going to be a problem for long. But if you're looking at the whole history of horror movies, this has been a problem for God knows how long. So I personally am all here for the change in the guard, and I'm here to see black characters become more of a positive force on screen. But you tell me, what do you think?